to the Over and Back Classic NBA podcast at the Step Back at fansided.com. I am Jason, and with me as usual is Rich. What's going on, Rich?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing all right.
As usual, I haven't been on this show in months.
Well,
it's actually been weeks, but you know.
Right.
But no,
don't let exaggeration get between friends, you know. No. So yeah, the world has changed a lot since we last recorded. We're not going to get into
what happened?
We don't want. Russell Westbrook is averaging a triple-double for a season. That's what happened.
Cool. Wow. Geez, this world is, 2016, what a great year this has been.
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook. Yeah. That's a pretty notable thing.
Indeed.
Yeah, wow. Okay. I didn't know that so much had happened since we last spoke, but there you go.
Right.
Wow.
So for
America is a different country now with Russell Westbrook as our new leader of triple doubles in a season. I don't know.
Russell Westbrook is making triple doubles great again. Is what
he is. He really is. He really is. I mean, LeBron did too, but
LeBron.
A lot of people were not happy with that tenure of LeBron as the the leader of the triple doubles, and now they've got an alternative here. He's a boisterous, loud, in-your-face kind of guy. But hey, some people want that out of Russell Westbrook, and that's why people are happy that he's our new triple-double leader.
That's true. LeBron is really 2008 to 2016 . So
exactly,
honesty,
that's a perfect time period for you to identify it as. It's so strange how it just worked out perfectly.
It is interesting, but so yes, as we record this today, which is November 30th, 2016, Russell Westbrook is averaging a triple-double for the first 19 games of the season. So a quarter of the way through the season. So obviously questionable whether he can sustain this throughout the entire season, but he's gotten further along than anybody since Oscar Robertson. That's pretty impressive. So
I was kind of surprised by that. I honestly, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised by that, but I heard that stat earlier and I was like, wow, that is really impressive. Like, you would think that it just somebody, I mean, it's 19 games, it's not that, but it really speaks to how rare it is what Russell Westbrook is doing right now, that nobody has done that through 19 games or this far into the season, which just seems out of control, but or seems wild. But hey, that's Westbrook for us. So
yes, so 30.9 points per game, 11.3 assists per game, 10.3 rebounds. So the points and assists are always going to be the rebounds. Of course, I think are the question. Just kind of hard that's going
to be a tough one for him. I think, and I think that's going to be the one that maybe if he doesn't do it, I mean, I think everybody can kind of agree that that's going to be it'll be like 9.8 rebounds per game or 9.6 or something like that. I think he'll get close to that, but that's going to be a hard thing to maintain the entire year, those 10 rebounds per game.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, he really is. I mean, he's kind of keeping the Thunder afloat. They don't have a whole lot other than him. Oladipo's played pretty well. Steven Adams is pretty good, but for the most part, they're obviously thin after losing Durant. So, but it's impressive the way that he's playing. I mean, I think he's playing in a way that also, it may be selfish in a sense, but I think it's kind of necessary for them to be good. There's really no other, he's not like taking possessions away from, somebody else who deserves them. I mean, I think they're playing it at basically the optimum way that they can play to win right now.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and people bring that argument up all the time about Westbrook of kind of being, and this is more obviously when Durant was there of okay, well he sometimes can dominate the ball too much or sometimes he can take too many possessions or whatever. But now as you're saying, like this team, this Thunder team, it's like who else would you give those possessions to? I mean, other than Oladipo, like you said, he's the only other like real true offensive weapon, and the other guys are just kind of complementary pieces. They're all decent players. They work and they fit in kind of different systems, and they're great for role players. But as far as like a guy that you want having the ball in their hands, I mean, Russell Westbrook is literally the only guy in the Thunder that you probably want doing that on every, and he is, and that's what he's doing, and that's what's and people predicted that this was probably going to be what the season was. Whether people predicted that it would be this crazy of a season, that he would be averaging a triple double almost the entire season, that'll be an interesting thing to see how that kind of plays out. But I think people had an idea that this could happen. This was a possibility this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think a lot of people brought up the example of Iverson in 2001, where he was just everything on the offense in terms of, being the guy who everything kind of ran through. I mean, he wasn't he wasn't a guy capable of double-digit rebounds very often. So the numbers weren't quite the same, but it was a similar role where, he just took so much of the offense on himself. And that was kind of the one time that they were able to be successful when they put sort of the right role players around him, guys who can play defense, guys who did everything he couldn't do, and then he was just able to kind of lead the offense. And it was obviously a much different time, and it was kind of a slog to get through, but obviously it led to them getting to the finals and success. And I don't expect that from the Thunder, obviously, but I do think that they I mean, like I said, I think they're playing about as well as they can. They're probably a solid playoff team, and it's really impressive what he's doing. I mean, obviously, that's a pretty obvious thing to say, but he's putting up numbers that are, like I said, no one has averaged a triple double. Everyone probably knows this, but no one has averaged a triple double for a season since Oscar Robertson did in 1962. And we're going to get into more of the impressive elements of his records, but. Justin Kupatko of StatMuse tweeted a couple of interesting things that I thought were pretty illuminating.
Yeah, so the two things he tweeted out was Russell Westbrook has an assist percentage of 58.8. The record for a full season is 57.5 by John Stockton, which is just another thing that's incredible about Westbrook this year is that for all the talk of him and the comps which are fair to like an Allen Iverson type of being the only guy in the offense or the only guy in the offense to really do anything, the only real good scoring option is that he's still assisting a lot. Like the fact that he is getting 11.3 assists per game, and the fact that he does now, according to this, and according to Justin and StatMuse, of course, who a fantastic website as well. If you check that out, it's at StatMuse as well on Twitter. But that he has the highest assist percentage ever, at this point right now at 58.8, which is just incredible. The other thing too that I thought was another just incredible part about Russell Westbrook's season is that Russell Westbrook, and this is tweet out again by Justin, Russell Westbrook has a higher rebound percentage this season than Anthony Davis and Karl Anthony Towns, who are I haven't checked. I think I know this, but I will have to clarify through our producer. Russell Westbrook is much shorter than both of those men. Correct? Okay.
Yes. I believe you're correct.
We'll have the producer look it up, but I'm almost positive he is way shorter and like not even close. And the other thing too, being obviously a point guard, you're sort of thought to be away from the basket as much, and that's just another thing that's awesome about Westbrook. And the reason I kind of think he's a little bit more impressive than even Allen Iverson that season, who Iverson was just incredible that year too. I mean, of course, the way he did it was much different. It was a lot of like dribble isolation stuff, but the fact that Westbrook is so explosive and that he just comes out of nowhere. So if he misses a shot or somebody misses a shot, he might not even be in the frame, and yet he still gets the rebound. And you don't get guys that do that all that often. I mean, LeBron is one that you see that a lot, but Westbrook just explodes out of frame wherever he's at, no matter what. And that's what leads to getting a lot of those rebounds. It's not really necessarily his fundamental rebounding and his fundamental boxing out and all that sort of stuff and good positioning. He's just way more athletic than like almost anybody else on the court. And that leads to getting so many of those rebounds. So it's just incredible what he's been doing this year.
Absolutely. And two other impressive things about his season so far is that he, right now, his usage percentage is 40.7, and the NBA record for a season is Kobe Bryant in 2006 with 38.74. So he's breaking that by almost 2%. Also, if you look at box score plus minus leaders for a season, LeBron James, he leads, he has the NBA record in 2009 at 12.99, and Westbrook right now is at 14.5. So really blowing that away, just in terms of the value that he's providing when it comes to those metrics. So amazing season. Obviously it's only 20 games into the season, 19 games in the season, so there's a lot to go, but safe to say that he is very likely to make some history this season, assuming things go well for him. But one thing I've seen discussed that it sort of gives me pause is, and there's been some pieces sort of giving some blowback to this too, but the idea that the reason that Oscar Robertson had his triple doubles is he averaged so much faster of a pace, and that obviously it's influenced. Obviously, the more possessions that you have, the faster pace, the more you're going to be able to get those stats. So in a way, it's true, but I think it really undermines what Oscar was all about and the accomplishment that he had. So Robertson, his teams averaged 126.2 possessions a game in 1962. The Thunder right now averaging 98.7. So almost another quarter more of possessions, a lot. And the Westbrook would average 46.6 points, 17 assists, and 15.6 rebounds per game if you extrapolated it for the number of possessions that you have. But I don't really think that's fair. I mean, playing that fast would completely change so many things of the game, and I don't think it's an apples to apples comparison. Obviously, if he played that much faster, he would get tired quicker. I mean, he would obviously produce more in a faster game, but I think that just trying to say that it would automatically happen like that, and probably not anyone's really saying that, but I do think that sort of undermines what they did in the 60s. it unnecessarily maligns the 60s players and what they accomplished, particularly Oscar Robertson, when you just say, well, it was just pace. Because it was more than just pace is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that I always bring up when, discussions of eras and, what would this guy do in this era? And what would that guy do in that era? I don't like that, necessarily, because there's just so many other factors, including, nutrition and weightlifting and schedules. And, I think it's nearly impossible to do kind of an apples to apples comparison of a player in 2016 and a player in, the 1960s. The other thing that I always bring up as well is that, you can undermine what Oscar did and say, they had a lot of possessions, and the rest of the league did too. And there wasn't like everybody was averaging triple doubles. You know what I mean? Like, it's not this thing. And we bring that up a lot when we talk about Russell and we talk about Wilt or whatever. And they go, Wilt, he was playing against shorter guys. And it's like, then not everybody in the league could have averaged 50 points a game, but they didn't. There's a reason that guy was better. I mean, so I always do that is I don't like having this, big grandiose discussion about like, let's compare all these different eras. But all you have to do is look at the era in which that player played in. They can't control what era they played in. Oscar can't control that he played in the 60s. He played in the 60s. That's when he played. That's when he was in the league. So we have to judge him on the merits of what was going on in the 60s, what the league was like in the 60s, what everything was like, in the 60s, the way the game was played, the tempo, the pace, all that stuff goes into it. And he was, without a doubt, one of the better guys of that era and was able to do the most with what that era gave him. And if the era did give him, more possessions and a higher tempo, okay, great. But there's a reason why we still talk about him being the only one that averaged a triple double. And it's not because it was just so easy to get a triple double because, we have 120 possessions a game. Let's everybody getting triple doubles here and there. I mean, he didn't. I mean, he stood out among those guys because of that, because he was so skilled, because he was so great. So I don't like this idea that we have to sort of undermine it because they got so many different possessions and Westbrook is doing it. I mean, it undermines both Westbrook's what he's doing and it undermines what Oscar did in his era. And I just don't think it's fair to do that comparison, apples to apples. I just don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, both their accomplishments are amazing within the context of what they're doing. And it's silly to start. I mean, obviously bringing up the number of possessions, that is relevant for context and that is relevant for why a lot of the big scoring numbers are during those seasons. I mean, I think it's important to know, to understand how the game was different then, but to use it in a way that's disparaging and just, I think it's bad. I think you summed that up well. So, how impressed are we by triple doubles in general? Because, on one hand, they obviously show versatility. And if you're contributing in the box score, when it comes to scoring and passing and rebounding and there's a good chance that you're playing a complete game. However, sometimes it also leads to some stat chasing or padding. Sometimes you might, take away from some defensive assignments to leave somebody open to go after a rebound or things like that. And certainly not all triple doubles are created equal. There's a big difference between a 40-point triple double and an 11-point one, or as I like to call it, the Jason Kidd special. So,
right.
So I don't know. I mean, I feel like there is sort of a tendency to kind of go goo over all these triple doubles, and I think they can mean such different things depending on how it's produced. That I feel like it's an interesting number, and obviously we look at it and it means something to us, but it means such different things depending on, really depending on the scoring total for the most part.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I agree with that. I think the way I've always looked at triple doubles, that I do enjoy them. And I do think that I am impressed by them, just because I think it does show that a player is kind of, in some ways, contributing to a lot of different aspects of the game. He's, not just parking behind the 3-point line and letting everybody else do the rebounding. He's getting in there and getting some rebounds. And he's not just letting everybody else pass. And every time he touches it, he's shooting or whatever. Or he's not just parked down low, getting, rebounds. I like the idea that they, this particular player that gets a triple double or averages a triple double or gets a lot of them is a guy that's all over the court doing a bunch of different things, contributing to his team in a lot of different ways. But as you said, they're not all created equal, and there are aspects of stat chasing and padding, and we'll talk about a few funny examples later in the show. But I've now, as I've kind of grown up in my NBA fandom and in doing research for this piece as well, when you see the sheer amount of triple doubles that have happened in history, it's hard to be impressed by like your pedestrian, like you said, the 11-point, Jason Kidd specials, the 11-10-10 ones or whatever. Those don't do much for me now. The ones that do work for me, though, are the ones, and we'll get into these again, where large point total ones, 30 plus points, a bunch of rebounds, a ton of assists or whatever. Those are the ones that really kind of resonate with me now. Whereas the ones where you just kind of squeak by, you get one extra rebound or whatever, those for whatever reason just don't do a whole lot for me anymore. And I don't know if that's because I've kind of grown up in my fandom, if it's because I'm, a negative Nancy these days. I don't know what it is, but I I don't like those as much, and I kind of poo-poo those. But then there are the ones that you see, especially we'll talk about Russell Westbrook ones. He's great at these ones that just make your head spin because you go, oh my God, that's so many points, a ton of assists, a ton of like those are the ones that now I really look at. But no, I still am impressed by them, but I think they're not all created equal. And the ones where there are higher point totals or higher totals in any one of the statistics, I think do stand out a little bit more to me, and I am a little bit more impressed by those.
Yeah, and it's interesting to look at, there aren't that many games that, triple doubles that exist where there's no negative game scores. The worst one that I can find, this is from 84 through Basketball Reference, is Kobe Bryant had one with a 5-game score. It was 10 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists, and 8 turnovers on 3 of 12 shooting. But it's certainly the instances of you having a triple double, but also not really having a strong game score are pretty rare. That doesn't happen too often for sure.
Yeah, there's only 13 guys with like under 10 or under double digit game scores ever with a triple double. So that's impressive. Unfortunately, as we mentioned, we're kind of picking on him a little bit, but Jason Kidd is in 3 of those top 15 of the lowest game scores ever. But to be fair, Russell Westbrook is one of them as well. So that's March of 2016 one. So it wasn't this season, it was last season. But it's I'm kind of surprised by that. I did think there was going to be some negative game scores in there because you would think that there would be just that guy who's just unabashedly chucking and he's got a terrible field goal percentage and he's getting turnovers because he really badly wants an assist or he really badly wants the points or whatever. But to see that the worst one is 5 is still, obviously that's not a great game score at all, but still that does say that pretty much if you have a triple double, chances are you're having a pretty good game. You're not really, having a huge negative influence on your team in a given game. So that's impressive to see that. Yeah.
And, other guys who are on there, Larry Bird, Jordan Crawford, Reggie Jackson, illustrious names for sure. So, I think it's interesting that this idea of a triple double is actually fairly recent term. Like it wasn't really something that was in the popular imagination. I did a search in the SI Vault looking for when triple double, was first used in a story. And it wasn't until, April of 1983 in a story about a search for a sports talk show host in Talent Search in San Diego, where one of the questions that weed people out was, what's a triple double in basketball? And then it went on to explain what the term meant. So certainly if a sports audience would not have been expected to know what that term meant in 1983, certainly I don't think it was used, very widely.
No, yeah, it's definitely not in the lexicon there. And what's interesting, too, is there's a few different origin stories of the triple-double. We found one, and I think the most popular one, and perhaps the correct one, but I don't know. We'll have to ask around, or if anybody knows or anybody is, has any insights to this, would be great too, because we can't really find a definitive answer. But some attribute it to kind of Magic Johnson's rise in the 1980s, and he was the first to really regularly do it and it be kind of noticed on that level or on that national stage or whatever. And Jay Adande in a 2004 Los Angeles Times piece says the term triple double was coined by Bruce Jolish, the former Laker public relations director, who needed a way to summarize Johnson's penchant for recording double figures in points, rebounds, and assists. So then that's kind of the main story is that, that guy needed to figure out something to do for Magic Johnson, who kept doing these. But then we found out that from another article, and this is from USA Today in 2008, others say that Harvey Pollack, who was the Sixers' famous media relations director, the guy famous for being there for Wilt's 100 game, there's people that attribute him to coming up with the term triple double, but it doesn't say when he did it. It just says he coined the term triple double. So I don't know. It could be either one. I've always heard the first version of it being the Lakers and Magic Johnson, but then there's this other version of Harvey Pollack, who obviously was in the game for so long, and it's a possibility that he did come up with it. But you doing that SI Vault search and not finding any references to it, pre 1983, I think speaks volumes that it probably is the Lakers or Magic, but who knows? We really don't know.
Yeah, either way, it's interesting. It's a nice term. It makes it very simple, But it just the idea that it was
double in vogue. Like, did people say double or no? Was it like we'll say double, but what's this triple? I don't know about that even. I guess we should have looked that up.
Yeah, I didn't check that. I would think that would have been well known, but that's an interesting question because that didn't occur to me until now. So the Magic Magic of podcasting. Sometimes,
yeah, that'll be our next show. Is the history of double doubles.
There you go.
Which, the very rare double double. We'll go over men that average double doubles in a season, Jason. That'll be great.
Yeah,
be a 7-hour show. Okay, here we go. Mark Eaton. Yay. Yes. Talk about Mark Eaton's 1984 season or something.
There you go. Yeah,
I don't know that he did. Don't look it up.
Probably not.
I just grabbed a year and I just grabbed Mark Eaton.
Yeah,
so
if you include blocks, maybe. But
why did I put up? Why was Mark Eaton the first one that came to my mind?
That's an interesting question.
I don't know. I guess I have Mark Eaton on the mind.
Yeah,
and I usually do around the holiday seasons as well.
It is definitely the season for Eaton. That's for sure.
He never averaged 10 points in a season. What am I thinking? Why would I?
I don't know, Rich. Don't beat yourself
he
up.
came very close. Oh, here, look at this. 1984, 1985. He had 9.7 points per game and 11.3 rebounds per game. So he almost did it.
Yeah, round up. That's good enough.
Yeah, I mean, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
So I was correct. Good Lord.
So looking at who has come closest to triple double for a season, it's actually surprisingly rare how close it's even come. I looked at players with averaging at least 10 points, 8 assists, and 8 rebounds per season. Oscar Robertson did it 5 times, one time from 61 through 65 seasons. And Wilt Chamberlain did it in 68, the year that he went for leading the league in assists and had 8.6 assists that year. Magic Johnson did it 3 times. One of those is a 37-game season where he was injured that year. So that's you might want to take that one out. But and then Jordan actually did it once in 89, 32 points, 8 assists, 8 rebounds. Jason Kidd did it in 07, 13 points, by far the lowest number of points for these. And then this year, at the moment, LeBron James and Russell Westbrook, of course, Westbrook averaging triple-double, and LeBron 23.5 points, 9.3 assists, 8.1 rebounds. So it's really interesting that it happens over really 13 or 11 times in NBA history in completed seasons, and then we have chance for 2 of them this season.
Yeah, it is kind of funny that you bring up LeBron, and we'll bring up his name a lot during the course of this podcast because he's a guy that always kind of flirted with triple doubles and got a lot of them as well. But it's just kind of funny that in this year where like the spectacular LeBron James is like, I don't know, like the guy's still having a fantastic year, but so many other players, including a Westbrook, are just having these like amazing, fantastic years or whatever. And LeBron just kind of laying there in the weeds with his 24 points a game, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. It's just crazy how he's just always kind of there, and I feel like that's kind of the baseline for LeBron, or even for the next few years. It's just going to be like, yeah, I almost got a triple double, but not really. People, but nobody, I don't see that many people talking about LeBron being like right there in the mix, but he absolutely is. I mean, I don't think I do not think he's going to do that because obviously you need a little bit of those numbers to peak up. But it's just kind of funny how it's just LeBron's just kind of there, and he's in anonymity these days. It's just kind of like we just expect this from LeBron these days. It's just incredible,
right? And I do think it's more possible than it has been in the past, just because he's taking less of the scoring load, and Kyrie right. and Love are taking more of the scoring load. So I definitely think that it's something that as that happens, definitely that gives a chance for him to get more assists and maybe focus more on rebounding if he wants to. I mean, I think there's definitely a chance that if he really wanted to do it, he could go after it and come close, if not actually get it done, without really submarining the Cavs are very, very likely to win the Eastern Conference, or at least it looks like that. So even if he's going after a little bit of number hunting toward the end of the season, it's not really likely to really derail any of their goals. So I could see it as a possibility, but as we've said, it's so rare in NBA history that you don't want to expect it, but it's I think I definitely think 23-8-8 for the season is definitely in play.
Yeah, certainly.
So looking at guys who have had the most triple doubles of all time, Oscar Robertson with 181 times, Magic Johnson with 138 is number 2. And they by far blow away the most. Jason Kidd is third with 107. So, what's interesting to me is that, first of all, Oscar actually over his first 5 seasons, he averaged a triple-double during that time. Now, he only did it once for an individual season, but if you look at his numbers in total, 30.3 points, 10.4 rebounds, and 10.6 assists a game. So, I mean, just obviously amazing work. And only one other player other than Oscar has actually averaged 9 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists per game, and that's Magic Johnson, who did it in 82. So, the fact that no one has even, reached that benchmark other than Magic, again, just shows you what Oscar did. But just looking at over 5 seasons, that's an amazing number. And 181, I don't think that's being broken anytime soon.
No, I think that's pretty safe for quite a while.
So, Magic also had 30 triple-doubles in the playoffs and 8 in the finals, which each is first all-time. And I found this interesting. So I went and looked at Jason Kidd, how many of his 107 triple-doubles were 20 points or more. And the answer is 34. So roughly a third of them were 20 points or more. If you look at the other players who've been around since 84, looking at theirs, it's kind of interesting. LeBron actually had 40 out of 45. So he actually has more 20-point triple-doubles than Kidd did. Westbrook has 31 out of 45. Magic, of the one since 84, he had 57 out of 91. Bird, again since 84, 30 out of 46. And Fat Lever, who we're going to talk about a little bit below, similar rate to Kidd, he had 19 out of 43. So I found that interesting. And again, that sort of speaks to our not all triple-doubles are created equal. So next, Wilt Chamberlain. He had 78 in his career. And, we've talked before about how complete a player was and, of course, how he has gaudy stats. But I think, the fact that he has this many triple-doubles might be a surprise to some people, even though, like we said, at times he did kind of go assist hunting in his career. But, the fact that he was so well-rounded to be able to do this, just kind of speaks to the talent that he had.
Yeah, absolutely. And the dominance that he had as well, because a lot of it is also, people being like, all right, screw it. We'll just throw 4 guys at him or whatever. And we'll just having to, at some point, be like, all right, fine, you get the ball, just having to pass it to other guys because it's, and that speaks to his dominance as well. A lot of those, and if you watch highlights of Wilt, you see a lot of his passes coming out of double and triple teams where he's just like, all right, well, you're wide open. So all yours. So again, that just speaks to, again, how dominant of a player he was and how just unbelievable he was for his time.
Yeah. And Larry Bird next with 59. And one aspect of his game probably not appreciated enough is his rebounding. He averaged 10-plus rebounds in his first 6 seasons in the league, and then at least 9 after that every healthy year, including 9.6 in his final year. And was top 10 in defensive rebounding percentage 3 times, including 1992, his last season. So
he didn't have a back.
Right.
And that speaks to, again, he was a guy that was just so smart about figuring out when the ball was going to bounce off the rim. And because I remember a lot of the rebounds that you see in a lot of clips you see of Larry Bird, you see him getting these rebounds. A lot of them are like bouncing off the rim or off the back. But you know what I mean? Like he was so good at just kind of figuring out where the angles of where it's going to go. Because not a lot of his rebounds are him skying over guys or really, being an incredible, box out or whatever. A lot of them are just being much smarter and just kind of understanding where the ball was going to go. And that's a big part of rebounding as well. It's not just being the best athlete or being, the best at positioning and all that sort of stuff. Some of it is just kind of understanding where the ball is going to go and just kind of being smarter than other people on the court. I know Dennis Rodman and Charles Barkley are great examples of that as well. They were really good at, kind of the fundamentals of boxing out, but they were really awesome at just knowing where the ball was going to go. They see it hit the rim and they knew exactly where it's going to go and got to that spot and got the rebound before other people. And you get that with Larry Bird because you look at 1992, he was still, tops in rebound percentage, and the guy couldn't walk, he couldn't stand, he couldn't sit. Like he was just, his back was shot. And for him to still be that high in rebounding just speaks volumes to what he was on the court. Yeah,
and he had great size, but he was 6'9", but not much of a leaper, Larry Bird.
No, he was not. No.
And then next, LeBron James with 45. Also 16 triple-doubles in the playoffs and 7 in the finals, which were both second to Magic Johnson. And he's the youngest player to have a triple-double. I believe he was 20 years old when he had his first triple-double. So he is tied with Westbrook, also has 45. So that'll kind of be an interesting race. I mean, Westbrook looking like he's just going to get more of them, for the rest of his career. So he'll probably will finish ahead of LeBron in the end there, but certainly interesting that they're both right now at the same level. And then next, Fat Lever at 43, the only non-Hall of Famer among the top 10 in this list, which it's interesting to probably not a guy who's really super appreciated, but was such a versatile guy. Another guy who was 6'3", yet was a stout rebounder.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. He had a crazy 4-year stretch. He averaged 20.5 PER, 5.7 box plus minus, 18.9 points per game, 8.9 rebounds per game, and 7.5 assists per game. And other things as well, he's 41st all-time in box score plus minus, and as you mentioned, a 2-time All-Star. So yeah, I was kind of surprised when I kept seeing his name pop up on this list, and I don't know if I appreciate Fat Lever enough, but I think after doing this research for the show, I think I do appreciate him a little bit more, because he kept popping up, and I'm like, what? Fat Lever, like I kept thinking he was sort of it just kind of popped up there, one or two times you get on there, and then the more and more I kept looking up these numbers, there was Fat Lever. He kept showing up here, and again, that speaks volumes to what kind of production he had on the court as well. And yeah, I don't think we appreciate him enough, and I hope maybe we do a little bit of education here and people kind of do look him up and go, oh geez, this guy was pretty good. Yeah,
and he played for Denver and Dallas for most of his career in the 80s and into the early 90s, and those teams they did have some playoff success here and there, but they obviously weren't high profile teams, so didn't get a lot of exposure during the time, and isn't perhaps as well remembered as he should be. And he's not, he didn't really have enough longevity to be a guy you think about in the Hall of Fame or anything like that, but he was, for a while, he was quite an excellent player.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, he got hurt. He started going through a lot of injuries. I think when he went to Dallas, right? Because he was fine for the most of the time in Denver and Portland. But I thought it was, when he went to Dallas, he just was never really right. And you can kind of see in his numbers as well that there was a big fall off. And I think he was out of the league by the time he was like 33 or 32. So
yeah, it was around 30 that he really fell off. And I think you're right. It was an injury that did that. So next, Bob Cousy with 33, and he was really the first NBA point guard who commonly had 10 or more assists per game. Assists were very stingy back then as far as scorekeeping went, which hurt guys in the 60s as well. But Cousy was, obviously, I think most people here are probably aware that Bob Cousy was an incredible ball handler and a flashy passer, especially considering his time, and could really, obviously directed some Celtics teams that were known for sharing the ball and being excellent on the fast break. And another Celtic who was known for his versatility and being able to do it all was John Havlicek, who had 31 triple doubles in his career. So, and really stood out, especially in the early 70s, once the Russell had retired and the Celtics transitioned to a new era of the 70s.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then other players with 20 plus triple doubles. Don't know if any of these names will really surprise you, but Grant Hill, Michael Jordan, Rajon Rondo, Elgin Baylor, Clyde Drexler, Walt Frazier, Kobe Bryant, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Ray Richardson, Chris Webber, and Charles Barkley.
No, I think they're all pretty guys that I would kind of assume would be up on that list. So yeah, I don't see anybody on that top 10 or even the top, like you said, the 20 plus triple doubles that really stands out as being surprising for being on the list. But one of the guys, I think what's most surprising is guys that aren't on the list. And I think there were a few names that you and I both picked out. And I think these, maybe people have some others as well. But these three, I really do think I was just shocked that they were not in that top 20 or 20 plus triple doubles rather. The first one was Scottie Pippen, who seems like the prototypical guy that was like the guy that could pass, could dribble, could rebound, could score or whatever. But for whatever reason, he just did not get triple doubles. He has 17 in his entire career. But I did find 49 instances of Pippen having 9 plus points, 9 plus rebounds, and 9 plus assists. And 17 of those saw him have under 9 assists, despite double figures in both of those other categories. So it looks like for whatever reason, he just couldn't get that 10th assist. But yeah, 49 instances of being right there, that close to getting them, and only ending up with 17 is pretty remarkable for Scottie Pippen.
Yeah, and it kind of just shows you like how arbitrary in some ways that triple double stat really is. Just the fact the 9 plus 9 thing is really interesting because obviously it's not that much of a difference, but it's different in how it's considered in history, and obviously
one assist, right. And he's got double the amount that he has now. Like one Luke Longley actually scoring at the rim type, and then you're done. You're good, and it's just so it shows you again like a tremendous player that should not be judged by the number of triple doubles he had, because we all know if you watch him play that he influenced the game in all those different ways, including defensively as well. So just pretty remarkable that he got that. Rick Barry is a guy that you don't see on the list as well. And then Julius Erving. Erving is particularly interesting because he was that kind of do-it-all guy, especially in his early years with the ABA. And even when he went to the NBA, he was kind of a guy that had the ball in his hands a lot, was a focal point of the offense, and you would assume he would be there. I mean, he's a tremendous rebounder as well, and a good passer, and of course a tremendous scorer. So you would assume he was on there, but for whatever reason he is not. So interesting. And Rick Barry as well. Again, we don't really have to clue people into Rick Barry or what he did, but he's a guy that, again, that like you'd just be shocked because that seems like something that he would routinely do is get triple doubles, but it didn't happen.
Yeah. Irving's highest assist total is 5.5 in his fourth year in the league with the Nets, and then the ABA. Once he moved to the NBA, it was usually around the high threes to mid fours until late in his career. And I feel like Barry would have been probably in a similar boat. I wonder if the ABA scorekeepers were a little bit more lenient when it came to assists. I would not be entirely surprised if that were the case. Yeah. So kind of going away from the triple double mindset, but trying to come up with like another way of looking at well-rounded seasons. I came up with like a 27-7 benchmark, and I don't know if it's perfect, and definitely you could incorporate some advanced stats benchmarks to kind of get a better sense of that. But just for this thought exercise, I decided to look at the list of guys who have accomplished that, and Oscar Robertson did it 6 times. Wilt did it twice. Havlicek did it twice. Magic did it twice. Bird did it twice. Michael Jordan 1 time. Pippen 1 time. Grant Hill 1 time. LeBron has done it 6 times and is on track for 7th this season. Westbrook has done it twice and is track for his 3rd. Interestingly enough, James Harden this year is on track for his 1st. At the moment, he is averaging 28.7 points per game, 7.3 rebounds, and 11.9 assists, which leads the league. And then, not on the list, but also in the ballpark at least, Giannis Antetokounmpo, he has 22 points per game, 8.3 rebounds per game, and 6 assists per game. So, we have 3 guys who, and no one is. There's only been one season where multiple players reached those benchmarks in the same season. 89, Magic and Michael did it. Other than that, it has never happened for more than one player per season. But we are at the moment have 3 and a 4th who is reasonably close to that level. So I don't know if it's just sort of a fluke of this year, or if it's some sort of showing kind of the way that the game has shifted, especially when you look at how Harden's style has changed this year and the way that Westbrook is playing, whether that's a harbinger of, maybe that's going to be a little bit more in vogue with, one guy handling so much of the playmaking and scoring and, the kind of letting your main scorer also be your main playmaker. Maybe that's going to be kind of a thing. I don't know, but it's interesting to look at.
Yeah, especially with Giannis as a guy that, again, you look at, not often do they say that you have this prodigy that's, 6'10", 6'11", and you say, you know what, yeah, you be the point guard because we want the ball in your hands, like, every single time down the court. That's, again, so that I think you're onto something there a little bit where you're talking about maybe this is a new thing that we see where teams go, okay, look, let's just get the ball in our best player's hands from the beginning of the possession. Let's not, have somebody walk it down and then pass it to him. Just, no, you get it. Like, that's your ball right away, and then you figure out what you want to do with it, and you don't do whatever you want with it, because we see that with Giannis, where, I mean, it's wild that he's the point guard for the Milwaukee Bucks, but he is, and it's working out well for the Bucks, and it's obviously working out well for Giannis. One thing I found that was interesting with this query that you came up with is seeing kind of the ebbs and flows of the NBA and seeing the different time periods in which a lot of people accumulated these numbers. Of course, you have Oscar in the 60s, Wilt in the 60s as well, Havlicek in the early 70s, and then it kind of takes a break from 72 until 80. You have none of them, and then Magic comes, and then you get a little bit more in the mid 80s. You get Larry Bird, of course, in 86, 87. Magic Johnson 89, Michael Jordan 89, as you mentioned, Larry Bird 1990, Scottie Pippen 92. Takes a little bit of a break in the mid 90s. Then you have Grant Hill in 97, and that was remarkable as well. That between 1997 and 2005, not a single person did it. Until you get LeBron, and then LeBron comes in the league, and then it's an almost every year occurrence for LeBron after that. And now we see, it happened in quite a few times. We see Russell Westbrook last year. We see this year where or Russell Westbrook actually 2 straight years, last year and the year prior. And then, of course, you had the 4 guys that could possibly do it this year as well. And I'm sure at least 2 of those, or we know at least 1 will probably be at that level, and it'll be interesting to see if all 4 do. But just seeing that kind of ebb and flow of the league of big time periods, big decades, almost full decades where they're not there and people don't average that, and then seeing just these, explosions in certain other times, I thought was pretty interesting as well, and seeing kind of the ebb and flow of when those kind of came in.
Yeah. It really is, because there is kind of there are some really big gaps there. I mean, if you take out Magic's one in 81, there is a 15-year gap between Havlicek in 72 and Bird in 87. So having one in a 15-year period is really interesting. And then you're right, there's sort of there's that gap from 97 to 05, and obviously nobody did before 61. So there's sort of a period where it happens like once almost every year, and then almost nothing for 15 years, and then it's sort of every year, every other year, and then it kind of goes dormant again until LeBron really picks it up in the mid-aughts. So looking at a little bit of triple-double trivia, we'll say. So Dolph Schayes had the first known NBA triple-double on February 8th, 1951. He had 18, 22, and 13. Karl Malone is the oldest player with a triple-double. He did it in 2003 with the Lakers. He had 10, 11, and 10, so barely got it, but was able to get it.
Boo, Karl.
He got the old J Kid triple double there.
Yeah, boo.
And then Wilt Chamberlain has the most consecutive triple doubles, 9 straight games in 1968, and Oscar and Jordan both did it 7 straight games.
That's insane. I don't care if it's the 10, 11, or I don't care if it's the J Kid special. That's pretty awesome to have 9 or even 7. Or to me, it's impressive to have back-to-back ones, triple doubles in a game. To me, is impressive alone. So to have 9 or 7 straight is just incredible.
Absolutely. Looking at some of the most impressive triple doubles of all time, there's a good number of these. I think we talked about this on one of our Will podcasts, but he had the most. He's had the only 20 game ever. February 1969, 22 points, 25 rebounds, and 21 assists. And then 21 assists was the Sixers single game assist mark for many years. Maurice Cheeks eventually tied it. And what are some of the other really impressive triple doubles that you found?
Yeah, Michael Jordan, April 13th, 1989 versus the Indiana Pacers. He had 57 points, 11 rebounds, 13 assists, a 45.8 game score. So just a phenomenal game score.
It was you said 57, but 47 points actually.
Oh, sorry, 47 points. Yeah, correct. Sorry.
Yeah.
Charles Barkley, June 1st, 1993 versus Seattle. This one, we'll get into some of the details here, but 43 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists, 47.1 game score, which I believe is the highest game score for any triple-double. This is famous as well, of course, because this is the Phoenix Suns. I've said June. You're thinking, it's in the playoffs. Yes, it was indeed in the playoffs. This is the Phoenix Suns. They were tied 2-2 with the Supersonics in the 93 Western Conference Finals. Wins were traded back and forth, and this was the win in Game 5 for the Suns. Seattle would take Game 6, and then Phoenix would eventually move on to the NBA Finals, winning in Game 7. But yeah, impressive to have it happen not only in the playoffs, but in like a crucial game of a big playoff series, to get his team into the next step of the playoffs and into the NBA Finals. It's just awesome. Larry Bird, March 15th, 1992 against Portland. This is a 2 overtime game, so we do have to preface it that way. But either way, still impressive. 49 points, 14 rebounds, 12 assists. A lot of people celebrate this as Bird's last great Celtics game. He hit a 3 to bring the game into its first overtime. It's known as one of the better regular season games ever. It was a kind of a mid-afternoon NBC national telecast or whatever, so a lot of people watched it. And it was just great back and forth action between, an aging Boston team and an emerging Portland team, because, of course, 1992, this is Portland that they would make the NBA Finals this year. And the Celtics would be on kind of their last breath for quite some time here. But in this particular game, Larry and the Celtics, they just made it happen and made it work against a young, dynamic Portland team. And Clyde Drexler after the game just kind of had to shrug and say, you know what, man? And here's this quote. He says, anytime you have Bird on the floor, anything can happen. So just they kind of have to say, hey, look, this guy has no back. We talked about it earlier in 1992. He can barely walk, he can barely move or whatever. But it's Larry Bird, and when he needed to, he'd get you a triple double. So that's an impressive one. Chris Webber, November 23rd, 1999 versus the New Jersey Nets. He had 26 points, 22 rebounds, and 10 assists. Magic Johnson. This is March 22nd, 1987 versus Sacramento. He's got 33 points, 12 rebounds, and 19 assists. It's a 37.5 game score, so a really impressive game score there. What's also impressive as well is when you look at Magic Johnson's career of triple-doubles, he has 7 of the top 10 assist totals for triple-doubles since 1983. Westbrook, Kidd, and Paul have the other 3. So not a surprise there that Magic would be, kind of the top assist guy of triple-double guys, but still, the fact that he's so far ahead of anybody else is pretty crazy. And then last but not least, Russell Westbrook, October 28th, 2007 2016 versus Phoenix. This is overtime game as well, so we do have to preface it, but still an impressive figures. 51 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists. This is the Thunder's franchise's first game without Kevin Durant. So, of course, this was the opener of this season, and he kind of took the world by storm. Westbrook he took a career-high 44 shots in this game as well, so he was definitely the all-man for the Thunder this game. But, yeah, the first time, it was just a big, poignant moment that we all, I think a lot of us still remember is, the opening night of the season. It's okay, what's Westbrook going to do when he's not with Durant? And then it's like, oh, yeah, I got 51, 13, and 10. So, not bad for a debut for Westbrook on his own. So.
And I don't know. Now, was that the opener of the season? Or was that the home opener? I feel like that was the home opener.
I don't know. I'll have to look that up. I thought that was the first game of the season, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Let me try to figure that out. October 28th. I don't know. I thought that was the first game of the season. I'm almost positive it was.
Okay. For some reason, I was thinking it was on a weekend or what have you, but it's not important. So never mind.
No, it is. No, sir, it is. Okay. I can't find it.
Okay. I'll if you want to look it up, I'll talk about the components of triple doubles. There have been 0 triple doubles since '83 with less than 10 points. 4 triple doubles since 1983 with fewer than 10 rebounds. Fat Lever did it with 10 steals. Clyde Drexler did it also with 10 steals. Kevin Johnson with 10 steals, and Mookie Blaylock with 10 steals. And then 66 triple-doubles with less than 10 assists. Dikembe Mutombo and Akeem Olajuwon had 10 of them. David Robinson had 8. Sean Bradley had 6. Mark Eaton had 5. And Hassan Whiteside already has 4. And presuming those are all blocks, is that correct?
When you do I didn't look it up, but then later I wanted to look at block totals, and it was like exactly the same amount of people. So I don't know exactly 100% that those were all block, but every one of those guys came up a ton when I did a query for triple double blocks. So I assume that is true.
Yeah. I mean, it would have to be. So,
I did look it up. You were correct. Sorry, not to interrupt, but I forgot about that Sixers game. Remember that very weird, like...
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so there was that weird Sixers-Thunder game, and so it was the first home game without Kevin Durant.
Okay.
For the Thunder franchise. So.
That's what I was thinking. So 50-point triple-doubles... There are, as we mentioned, Westbrook had one, the first one in 41 years. Before that, Elgin Baylor had one in 61. Richie Guerin of the Knicks had one in 62. Wilt had one in 63. Actually, in the same game, Elgin Baylor also had one, February 13th, 1963. Quite a game that must have been for people to see. Wilt again had one in 1968, and then the last one before Westbrook's was Kareem in 1975. So, 50-point triple doubles. That's extraordinarily rare, but impressive company.
What's not so rare is almost 50-point triple-doubles, which we found quite a few in the history of the league. Of course, we have to use basketball references, play index, so we don't have ones before 1983 for some of these, so that is kind of a limiting factor. But there are quite a few. Michael Jordan in 1989 had 53 points, 14 rebounds, and 8 assists, so he just missed it by assist. In 1989, he also had it again in April. He had 47 points, 11 rebounds, and 13 assists, so just missed the 50-point total. Michael Adams in 1991 for the old Denver Nuggets had 45 points, 14 rebounds, and 11 assists, so just missed that point total. We mentioned Larry Bird again. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, Michael, that was the year that Denver played just at a crazy pace, so yes. They really had influence, crazy scoring totals that year, and Adams was the beneficiary of that for sure.
Right, and because they played at a higher pace, he averaged a triple-double that year because it's so easy, remember? Right? Like, we all remember when Michael Adams in 1991 averaged a triple-double in the season. I mean, we bring it up all the time. Duh,
exactly.
Except for us. We for some reason forgot to bring it up at the beginning, but it's so weird. We always use Oscar Robertson as that. But anyway, Larry Bird, we mentioned that in the 2 overtime game, 49 points, 14 rebounds, 12 assists, so we just missed it there. Tracy McGrady, 2003, 46 points, 10 rebounds, 13 assists. Kobe Bryant, 2006, 53 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. Again, as you mentioned there, Larry Bird, 1992, all the way to Tracy McGrady in 2003. So we see that same big gap of like nobody getting any sort of even near triple doubles, not even near 50-point triple double. It's just crazy. Vince Carter, 2007, he had 46, 16, and 10. LeBron's on here few times. He's got one game versus the Knicks, 58-10. Another game in 2009, also against the Knicks, 52-9-11. That's going to be a theme with LeBron with a lot of these. He's got another one versus Orlando, 51 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists. So again, like you said, a very small margin, one extra assist, one extra rebound, and then we're talking about him as, one of these amazing elite triple-double games, but then he didn't get one assist, so whatever, he's on this other list here. And then Russell Westbrook twice, 2 years ago, rather, March 4th, 2005, 49 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists, and then one earlier this year versus Orlando, 41 points, 12 rebounds, and 16 assists. But of course, 41 points, so he just missed it. Just by a little bit there. So. Just by a little bit, yeah. And then LeBron, I think it was the 2009 game where he initially was called a triple-double, and then they said one of the rebounds was not a real rebound, so they called it back. That? Come on.
Yeah.
Who cares that much?
Scorekeepers, come on.
Who cares that much, Jason? Bob Sura cares that much because urged by his teammates in a blowout game, Atlanta Hawks journeyman Bob Sura intentionally missed a layup just before the buzzer so he could get a rebound and make his small mark in history. Bob Sura was looking to become the first NBA player in 7 years with 3 straight double-doubles. Unfortunately, less than 24 hours after he did that, the league ruled that he would not be awarded for intentionally missing a shot. The field goal attempt was taken away, which wiped out the rebound, and Bob Sura was left with 22 points, 11 assists, and 9 rebounds, not 10.
Oh, boy. Poor Bob. This was right in the initial stages after I'd moved to Atlanta and was looking to become a Hawks fan, so I was following them to a certain degree. Yeah, and Sura kind of went crazy during that year that actually they played much better than the team was hoping they would, and then they ended up not getting the number 1 pick and then losing out on Dwight Howard, who, of course, was from Atlanta, and they were hoping would be a hometown star that would turn things around. But, Dwight Howard went to Atlanta eventually, so everything worked out okay.
Exactly. You got prime Dwight Howard in Atlanta this year, so you're all good. So anyway, another player that cared way too much, Ricky Davis, and this is probably the famous one. I think anybody that listening to this, I think knows this story and has seen this clip. But if you haven't, Ricky Davis, after Utah's Scott Padgett scored with 6 seconds left, Ricky Davis took an inbound pass and was ready to attempt a shot at the wrong basket to get his 10th rebound. Deshaun Stevenson wrapped his arms around Davis before the attempt and was whistled for a foul. Davis made 2 free throws to complete the scoring as Cleveland beat visiting Utah 122-95. Jerry Sloan not happy about it. He said, let him try to get it when the game means something. I was proud of Deshaun and I would have knocked him down harder. They can put me in jail for saying that, but that's just the way it is. So, but then Davis, ever the eloquent man himself, said they should be mad. Any team that gets beat that bad shouldn't be happy, but I wouldn't do it again. I just wouldn't. I'd probably be mad too, losing by 20.
There you go, Ricky Davis.
God bless Ricky Davis. Bless Ricky Davis. But anyway, Davis in that game, he had 28 points, a career high 12 assists, and 9 rebounds, not 10, as Cleveland snapped a 7-game losing streak. And this was in the dog days of the Cleveland Cavaliers franchise and their weird bad jersees and just, it was all right there.
Right before LeBron, yes.
Yes.
So, I wonder if Ricky Davis, if 28-year-old Ricky Davis came to the Cavs today, if LeBron could have the same magic on him that he had a magic on J.R. Smith to become a useful player who's this cult favorite and makes these clutch 3-pointers and even though he does goofy stuff every once in a while, everybody loves him. So
I've always thought they're very similar. I'm not entirely convinced they're not the same person. So they might just be the same person. I haven't seen them in the same place at the same time ever.
Just take off the headband and maybe and
right.
The hair,
I mean, I don't know. It's right there. I mean, they're both kind of goofballs. They kind of play similarly. They're really awesome athletes, and you're like, oh man, if you just weren't so you and this is fitting as well. Of course, the day after, for people, again, we record this on November 30th. There was a play yesterday where J.R. Smith went to go handshake Jason Terry on the bench while the game was going on, and his defender, or the guy that he was defending, just kind of cut to the basket and got the basket. So that was just a perfect J.R. Smith moment. And he said, I didn't even know I was in the game. So that's just the best ever. And then the same guy will then contribute to you winning a championship. You know what I mean? Be a key part in a key game of why you won a championship. And I remember that with Ricky Davis when he eventually went to the Celtics, that he was awesome. And it's God, geez, it's just so weird with those guys. But yeah, I'm actually I'm on a campaign that they are the same person. So
okay, and I think Ricky Davis is 4 inches taller. So that might be evidence.
They got the lifts. You got lifts these days.
Sure.
All these different and with stem cell research and technology, you could make that extra 4 inches.
Research, right? Yes,
I know so much about it.
That's very topical, right?
Yeah,
so
right
there. So we all contain multitudes. So what can we say? Anyway, thanks everyone for checking us out. You can find us at the Step Back at faninsider.com. Appreciate you checking us out and all the great writing and podcasts that are there. You definitely find something you like if you check it out. And you can find us on iTunes and Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcasts, by searching for Over and Back or searching for the Step Back. And you can find us on Twitter and Facebook at Over and Back NBA. So thanks again for listening. We'll be back again soon.